Welcome back. In this video, we're going to be talking about Cypress hooks. So Cypress offers 4 useful methods for running things either before or after individual tests have run or the groups of tests have run. So let's go ahead and take a look at our goals for today. So we're going to be looking at how to understand how hooks can minimize some boilerplate by just writing a repeatable series of code snippets, and then using the 4 common Cypress hooks in a test suite. So we'll look at before, which is the hook that runs one time before all of your tests have started. beforeEach runs before each individual test. So it's going to run however many tests you have, it's going to run that many times, whereas before only runs one time and then that's it. After will run one time after all of the tests are finished up. It again will only run once. And then afterEach, similar to beforeEach, is going to run one time after each individual test. So again, with the each, however many tests you have in your suite, that beforeEach or afterEach is going to run that number of times, whereas just before or after, those hooks will only run once. And then a quick note on the order that Cypress runs these hooks. So the order is before will run one time before any of your tests run. Any beforeEach hooks will run before your tests start. Your tests are going to run. Then any afterEach hooks are going to run. And then finally after is going to run one time after all of your tests and after the afterEach hooks have run. So that's a lot of setup. Let's go ahead and take a look at what this looks like in practice. Okay, so we have our project running locally, and then the Cypress open script is also in a separate terminal. So like we've normally been doing, we've got a couple tests here at the bottom. So let's go ahead and comment these out. And then we can write our first before hook. So let's go ahead and grab this URL from a previous test. And if we remember, this SpaceX data missions endpoint is going to return an array of 10 missions. So before any of our tests run, we can just check to make sure that our API is working and that it's returning a list of 10 missions. So we can see we had a beforeEach before earlier in the series. Let's go ahead and get rid of that for now. We'll come back to it. And we can say before, and this takes a function. And we're going to use something new, cy.request. And this is a method that you can use when you're making a network request like we're doing here. And you can do some things with the data that is returned. So we can do its body, and that so now we have access to the response body. And we can just like assert that it should have length of 10. And then in order for this before hook to actually run, we need to have some tests. So we can do like it visits the home page. And we can just do like a cy.visit. And then we can uncomment this one that says it has an H1 on the page. And so we can just copy this cy.visit and paste it below. So now we've got 2 tests, and we should expect this before hook to run one time before moving on to these 2 tests. So let's save that. Let's open our test runner. So let's go ahead and stop it. We can run it again. Here we go. Okay, so visits the home page and has an H1 on the page. If we open this up, the first test, we can see this before all that does not appear in the second individual test. So before, the before hook, which is labeled before all here, presumably just to make it a little bit more clear in the test runner UI, saying before all of the tests run, we're going to run this request to the SpaceX API. We grab its body, and then we asserted that it would have a length of 10, which it did. So that passed. And then it just visited the home page and then moved on to the next test that we wrote earlier. Something cool, just kind of as an aside, so not necessarily related to hooks, but if we click on the its body and then open up the console, it prints out the contents of that body, so we can see that it yielded this array. We've got the subject, which is an object, and we can see, so basically what this is saying, this subject is the request itself. So this is all of the stuff that you have access to off of that cy.request method. And then here's what the response of the body actually yielded, which is the array of 10 missions. So that's pretty cool, and you can do some cool stuff with that, storing data to variables, testing those variables, or using those bits of information for further tests and things like that. But that's just a quick aside about the cy.request method. So you'll notice in our test, we actually wrote this cy.visit the home page twice. But what we can do instead is we can utilize the beforeEach hook to get rid of that boilerplate. So we can cy.visit the home page. So we can copy that. Let's get rid of this home page visit here, and let's see. Okay, so rendering the correct H1 text. We can take a look. We should see kitchen sink, presumably. That's our H1. So we want to just check and make sure that kitchen sink is showing up. So an H1 exists, rendering the correct H1 text. We can just reuse this test from earlier, and it should contain the text kitchen sink. And so now we don't have to write cy.visit here and in this test as well. So before the beforeEach hook was implemented, we would have had to cy.visit the home page before writing the rest of our test. But now, because of this beforeEach hook, we can actually get rid of the cy.visit, and now we don't have to think about that anymore. So if we save it and we rerun our tests, now we can see that before all was there. So we're still doing the request, cy.request. You can see beforeEach, we're visiting the home page, and then here's our test body where we're getting the H1 and just expecting it to exist. And now in the renders the correct H1 text, we can see that beforeEach is also listed. The before all is only listed once. So we're running the cy.visit beforeEach test and then running our H1 finder to just check that kitchen sink is the text that's showing up in the H1. So similar to that, we can do an afterEach, and we can just write something like, for this example, we can just cy.log after each hook is here. And we can go ahead and save this, rerun our tests. We can see our before all runs once, our beforeEach hook is here, our test body, and then afterEach, we're logging it. And we can see that afterEach down here as well. And then finally, one more example, we can just do our after. And we can say cy.log the final after hook runs once. And I think I'm getting a linting error just because of these double quotes. Okay, so saving that. And now if we look in our test runner and open up both of our tests, we can see the before all runs once, beforeEach is visiting, our afterEach shows up in the first test, but we don't have the after all because we're, remember, the after all is going to run after all of our tests are done. So now once again, we have our before each, we run our test body, we hit our after each hook, and then after all of the tests are done, we see once the final after hook runs once. So those are some useful methods to use during your test to reduce boilerplate and to be able to run tasks at different points in your test suite without explicitly running them. It is recommended by Cypress that you're running these within your context or describe blocks. So you could write them at the root level outside of your context or describe statements, like up here. But Cypress recommends against doing that because it may have some unintended side effects and may be hard to keep track of the various hooks that are running between different test suites. So that's it for this video. In the next video, we're going to take a look at how to use a piece of Cypress called fixtures, which is going to allow us to kind of mock up some data and be able to use that locally in our test suite so that we can test for, we'll have a consistent foundation to test against in terms of data. If you're looking to check out more in the meantime, be sure to check out the blog and community pages at the URLs shown here, lambdatest.com/blog and community.lambdatest.com. You can check out some cool information about writing Cypress tests, as well as some different ways to get certified and bolster your experience and resume, and just make sure that you're writing excellent tests. So thanks again for watching, and I will see you next time.